Hi everyone, welcome to our devotion for February 26th. Yesterday we finished that story of the paralyzed man being healed, but in Mark's gospel, one story just runs right into another. There's not a lot of time in between things. That's part of Mark's secret for writing these. Everything just keeps moving one thing to the next to the next. We do skip the one connecting verse between that story of the paralyzed man and here, where it says that Jesus left his house and sat outside and continued teaching and healing and talking. That makes perfect sense because now his house has no roof. So why not just go sit outside where it's fun? But now we begin, we take up chapter 2, verse 14. And it says, as Jesus was walking along, he saw Levi, son of Alphaeus, sitting at the tax booth. And he said to him, follow me. And he got up and followed him. And as he sat at dinner in Levi's house, the scribes of the Pharisees said to his disciples, why does he eat with tax collectors and sinners? And that's where we'll pause the story. So here is probably the last and final one of Jesus's disciples that's found in Mark's gospel. Most of them don't get a story of Jesus finding them and calling them. Most of them are just kind of background characters, and then eventually they get their name dropped in a list. But we had Peter and Andrew, we had James and John, and now we have Levi. Some versions call this person Matthew. That's where the Gospel of Matthew gets his name. Here, though, he's called Levi, the son of Alphaeus. And Levi, we know, is kind of a challenging character. He's sitting at the tax booth, so he is a tax collector, or he works for a tax collector. And I know we have all kinds of problems with the IRS and paying our taxes, but that's got nothing on the ancient Roman system of taxation. So the ancient Roman system, they taxed everybody 1 day's pay every year. But you only made 1 day's pay every year, and 1 day's pay was the same amount of 1 day of eating. So in order to pay taxes, you had to give up a day of eating. And the problem, of course, is that depending on how many people you had in your family, depended on how many days you got to eat. If you had 8 people, you only ate about once every 6 or 8 days, because you only have enough to feed one person every day. Well, the tax collector's job was to go around and collect this. And Rome would use local people, the indigenous people, the regular neighbors of your community, as their tax collectors. They would make people work for them. So Levi would have known all of these people around. He would have been part of somebody's family. He'd have been cousins to everybody. And his job was to go around and knock on their door at least once a year asking for this tax, whether they had it or not. The tax collectors also had the authority to raise up fees for their job of going around and collecting the taxes, and they got to keep whatever extra they made. So a lot of tax collectors would become very, very rich at the expense of their friends and family and neighbors that they're taking all these extra fees, right? If you were late paying your taxes, the tax collector might say, well, now that's doubled. And if I have to come back again, that'll be tripled, etc., etc. But they still only had to pay the one in. So there's a whole big complicated system going on here. But Jesus saw Levi and said, follow me. And Levi got up and left it all behind to follow Jesus. But Levi is also evidently wealthy enough that he could host Jesus at his house for a meal. And this seems nice, right? Just Jesus comes over for supper, except it was never just Jesus. It was always Jesus and his disciples and their families and their friends, right? At some point, we estimate that Jesus had somewhere around 150 to 300 people that were with him, that were part of him, that when he came over for dinner, it was him and them inclusive. Just saying Jesus meant Jesus and all of these other people. So this is a big dinner party at Levi's house. So of course it's noticed. It's noticed by the community. The scribes, again, are mentioned here. These wealthy people, right, that are antagonistic to the wealthy people that are tax collectors. They don't get along with each other. And so of course they ask, why does Jesus eat with these tax collectors and other assorted sinners? Because tax collectors were not looked upon very favorably back then. And then our devotion for today talks about that sometimes we don't look very favorably upon this type of person or that type of person. We wonder if we ourselves are that type of person, right? But Jesus has this way of bringing in those types of persons and making them part of the family, making them part of his group, including them when other people would exclude them. And so that's what we get out of this story, is we get Jesus doing this remarkable inclusive action of bringing in Levi into this group of people who, let's admit it, are probably following Jesus because they don't like the Roman system. But here's Levi, part of that Roman system, and he's now part of Jesus's group. And they're going to have to get along. Another one of Jesus's disciples is Simon the Zealot, and the Zealots were known to assassinate tax collectors. And somebody told me a long time ago that there must be a funny story in there one of these days of Jesus saying, okay, Levi, the tax collector, and Simon, the guy who likes to kill tax collectors, you guys are going to share a tent today. Good luck. We'll see you in the morning. Right? This idea that we're completely changing the way we anticipate this world to work. So let's conclude with our prayer. Jesus, you chose to dine with the likes of Levi, so I'm going to stop trying to figure out why you want me in your company and just accept that you must have strange taste. And I couldn't be more grateful for that. Amen. God bless you today.